I wish I knew how to quit you.
Then why don't you?
This is Codependent Content, a podcast where my partner and I discuss the TV shows, movies, and video games in which we've formed an unhealthy relationship. My name is Mattias, and my co-host is Shannon Riley. Join us each week as we try to make sense of the media we continually give our hearts against our better judgment, and commiserate with us as we struggle and fail to let go of the characters, stories, and worlds that we are entangled with. Because just when we think we're done with content, it draws us back in. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Codependent Content. I have a new microphone, you may have noticed. We sound a little bit different tonight. We are now more consistent. We are upgrading the production quality on this podcast just for you, just for all our listeners out there. Not that the other mic was bad, but just wasn't good for podcasting purposes, you know. And now me and Shannon were more consistent.
A high quality production.
This is, as the intro mentioned, Codependent Content, where we talk about our unhealthy relationship with content. And maybe someday we'll figure out why we have to call it content now and not just, I don't know, art, entertainment.
You know, speaking of unhealthy relationship with content, Mattias is not going to be with me this Friday when episode 5 comes out. And I'm a little disappointed. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, she's referring to the fact that I am going out of town for work to make money that puts food.
I'm going to have to watch this alone.
And also the fact that HBO decided to drop the next episode 2 days early because of the Super Bowl. Because they don't want to compete with football, even though we're not watching the Super Bowl.
Hey,
Who cares?
If you want to watch those ads in that halftime show, you know.
I can't remember the last time. Ever since they started dropping trailers online, I haven't needed to actually watch the Super Bowl because they all pop up online, and that's the thing. It is my Super Bowl because we get. Actually, is that when the Fast 10 trailer's dropping?
Oh fuck!
Is that that's it? I think that might be when the Fast trailer might be dropping.
I don't know.
If not the day before, it's coming. I haven't looked at the date. Fast and Furious, another franchise that we are super in love with, despite the fact that it has kind of gone downhill the last couple of movies. But yeah. It's okay.
It's a party.
I'm a little disappointed that Justin Lin decided to, I guess, leave the director's chair for 10. Mm-hmm. So, we are. Anyway, this is not a Fast and Furious podcast. Right now, this is a Last of Us
Stick around
podcast. And today we're talking about The Last of Us episode 4. For those who are joining us for the first time, know that we will be spoiling all of episode 4
everything
from the jump. We will be spoiling anything that might happen in the game in regards to episode 4. And we will try our best to not spoil anything with our knowledge of the game that might happen in episode 5 and later. We can't guarantee anything, but we will. We typically try and keep those things spoiler free, and any insight that we might have in terms of like any secrets or mysteries or anything that might be upcoming, any foreshadowing, we won't reveal anything. But once we get into our anticipation for next week, we will be spoiler territory all the way through. We'll talk about what was going to happen, what might happen in the games, what did happen in the games, what might happen in the show. And it's going to be there. We'll give you a spoiler warning there, but just so you know, if you haven't seen the episode 4, you're going to want to go watch that first.
Yeah.
I don't know why you're here if you haven't seen the episode.
Stick around, but definitely go watch the episode. Especially for me. I am such a spoil sport. I'm going to spoil everything.
And speaking of it, if you are new here, we do have a lot of new listeners. I mean, the podcast is brand new, Shannon. I don't know if you knew this. We're only 4 episodes old.
Little baby.
We are just as old as The Last of Us TV show because we started this with The Last of Us TV show.
It's our month anniversary of starting a podcast.
Yeah.
Aww.
Well, it is. I get
That's
kind
wild.
of a month. Did we start in? I don't know. So I want to thank the people that have joined us, mostly a lot of people from TikTok, which is great. Who knew that I would be thanking TikTok and its wonderful algorithm for delivering us into your earbuds and into your phone screens and wherever it is that you get your content, right? Yeah. You're now codependently linked with us and content. It's great. It's a wonderful time. We're glad you're here. We're finding some rapid growth. I say rapid. I think just rapid in terms of I didn't expect this to go as hard as it has been going, or get the feedback or the I guess, the connection with people that we've had so far.
I'm just glad that people seem to be as obsessed with the show as we are. I mean, obviously it was going to be a hit, huge production value. People are in love with these games, but that's part of the fun of being part of a community, is that you get to engage with people more than just like your immediate friend circle. Oh yeah, and the feedback and the engagement has been awesome. And also, a statistic I've told you, Shannon, is really interesting. I mean, we have about 300 to 400 people that apparently listen to the podcast, according to statistics. I don't know how accurate those things are, and it's just from Anchor that I'm using this, which is pretty amazing. 70% of that is female. Hello, ladies.
Another like 8-ish, 10% is non-binary. So
hello, non-binary baddies.
We are covering a good gamut of, I believe, your favorite market, which is just not men.
No, okay, for all the men here, I love you, I respect you, I appreciate you. Everyone listening to this podcast knows there are some dude bros on the internet that are toxic as shit. If you're here, you're probably not one of them, so I'm not talking about you. But men on the internet, you got to watch out.
Yeah, so we're really proud of the fact. We're also proud of the fact that we do bring a male perspective and a female perspective to everything, and people seem to be enjoying that, and we love it. But also, you could keep that toxic shit out of our comments.
Get the fuck out of here with that bullshit.
If you're not here to have feelings and have fun, and
if you're not here to cry and just put like cry emojis and heart emojis on your comments, I don't have time.
Yeah, so I just want to thank all those who have been here so far, kind of from the beginning, and have been catching up on our content. We are brand new to this. I mean, I'm not new to producing things and making things, and I've done podcasts in the past, but we are new to podcasting together, and we're, I feel like it's been kind of rough. We're very critical of our own work. It's not just me. I know Shannon is also. We've been going back and forth. We've definitely been trying to accept feedback and do those things and check in with how we are doing. I think we're only going to get better. So just remember that you're here from the very start, and I think it can only go up. And things when you first start are always going to be rough when you start out. So I think that it's something to keep in mind. You're here from the ground floor, and we appreciate that. And maybe someday we'll be able to thank you all in some other capacity. But until then, we're doing
You get a car. You get a car.
But that said, give us feedback. You can email us at codependent. I'm starting a little bit. Let me warm up my voice.
Let me warm up that mouth.
You can email us at codependentcontent@gmail.com. Again, you can find us on TikTok. It's using my username, Mattias Allegro, and you've already found us through there. All our social media links are in the description, as well as our email and our Discord, where we record this live, or we're attempting to do a community Discord where we record this live, and you can also jump in afterwards if we ever have some people that are joining us, and after we are actually finished talking about the episode, we just open it up to anyone who wants to talk about anything, maybe ask questions, do whatever. We appreciate any feedback. You can get this wherever you get podcasts. That means if you're getting it on Apple and Spotify, which is majority of you, leave a rating, review. If it's a bad review, I don't care. If you think
we just want to know.
We probably deserve 3 stars. We like.
Okay,
but we
no.
Like
Get out of here with that.
Well, I'm just being
5
honest.
stars for love.
We will always shoot for 5. But if we're not living up to that, please let us know. Email us, do whatever. Actually, I haven't checked email. I wonder if we should. I probably should have done that before we even started. We got nothing. Anyway.
Okay.
But I did
Next
also
week.
Get some feedback from my sibling.
Okay.
They mentioned that. Let me see if I can find the text message because it was actually a text and not an email. But I really appreciated this. This is feedback about last week's episode, something that we didn't bring up. They said they were talking about the fact that Bill probably had no actual combat experience and how much of his macho bravado is just a facade when he believes he's dying from a single bullet wound.
Yeah.
And I think we did kind of gloss over the fact that like Frank did save his life. That's we get that. That's true. That's right there. But the fact that Bill is just kind of standing out there in the middle, like it crossed my mind, but I didn't really think about it. The fact that he's just in the middle of the street, no cover, nothing, just engaging with these people. And it is probably the stupidest way to get into a firefight as possible. And the fact that like even more tragic than just, I mean, it's not tragic. It's a beautiful love story. But the fact that without Frank, Bill's story could have ended much more tragically is the fact that like he wasn't actually really good. He was really good at surviving, to get electricity on, to get water on and stuff like that. But he's clearly, he has a lot of guns, but has he actually ever been in combat? Probably not. He runs out in a gas mask, which is an homage to the game when we first meet him, but also there's no reason for him to have done that. He's prepared for kind
anything?
Of nothing, you know? So Bill, we love you, but what are you doing?
I like to think that he really does just think so little of people, and doesn't have to engage with them very often post-pandemic, that he really does just believe in his preparedness. And he's like, well, between the traps and all the fire, like I can confidently stand out in the middle of the street and just pick off whoever's unlucky enough to like get through my initial line of defense. But you're right, that does show like Joel has far more experience just being on the ground and like in those sort of situations versus Bill, who is prepared for all of these ideas that he think could happen in his head. But then once you're in the reality of that situation, like, gets shot the first fucking
he got shot. And again, as my sibling brought up, that he is immediately thinking he's dying.
Right.
Like, you know, like it was a through and through shot. There was no bullet that Frank had to get out. And we know that like if it's through and through, I'm sorry, we know, I know, I don't know who knows. Maybe someone out there on the internet knows. I get it. I'm not the only one that knows these things.
Anyway,
typically if it's through and through, then it's a lot safer.
Do you know why?
If a bullet has stayed in you, then most likely it's also fragmented.
Ooh.
And it's harder to, it depends on the bullet. It's not always the case. These bullets might not have fragmented, but there's a possibility that pieces, I mean, any foreign body that enters your system is going to poison it, to destroy it, you know, things like that, right? It's just more dangerous. You have to get it out. Otherwise, like, it introduces more problems down the line. You know? And then if it's fragmented, especially, it's going to be even more dangerous. And if it's fragmented inside, that's going to be a lot harder to, like, it could have done much more damage. Yeah. But this just went through. It clearly missed any vital organs, or hopefully missed any vital organs. Otherwise, he would be destroyed. And then all you got to do is stop the bleeding, and you can be fine. You're more likely to get... He clearly bled a lot and passed out in this case, but he probably wasn't going to die. And thank God Frank was there anyway, because Frank kind of knew what he was doing. And you got to wonder, Frank's backstory, right? We never get too much of Frank's backstory. He is the only one that survived out of apparently 10 people that left. But not only that, a QZ that was completely lost. Yeah. And you got to imagine Frank is not more dangerous than he gets to be, but he's much more capable than we probably anticipate, expect, or whatever like that. And it's just interesting, you know. You kind of wonder what did he have to do to be the lone survivor? Yeah, like who did he have to sacrifice? Who did, you know, what sins in his past is he redeeming for by even being here with Bill? You know, it's just an interesting thing. There was apparently like a 2-hour version of last week's episode. And okay, for those who are just listening, our power went out.
Let me get some candles.
luckily we're kind of running on battery power everywhere. So we're fine. Our camera's still up. Except you can't see us now. So we might have to stop the podcast. I'm going to stop recording. We'll come back to you when this and our internet's out.
Oh yeah, because the internet's out. Yeah.
And our internet's out.
Okay, we'll be back. Bye.
Sorry. Well, you'll hear. You will not have any time pass for you. We'll let you know how much time has passed for us by the time we come back. Okay, so hopefully the power doesn't go out again. That was about 30 minutes of just darkness. It went out, came back on, went out again. We lost our internet, so we had to. We didn't want to just run on battery power. We had no lights.
When you're lost in the darkness,
no,
you cannot podcast.
Anyway, as I was saying, there is a 2-hour version of the episode last week, which I think a lot of people would love to see. I guess if it wasn't just going to make us cry more. Are you ready for this week's episode?
I'm so ready.
Okay, let's get into it since we've already wasted so much time in the dark. Pew, pew. This is a recap of episode 4. By the way, called "Please Hold to My Hand." Correct?
Correct.
Because people are saying, Please hold my hand. That is not correct.
That is incorrect.
Please hold to my hand.
Because those are the lyrics to the
song
Hank Williams
song. If you listen to the podcast, not our podcast, if you listen to the official Last of Us podcast, you would know that because Craig Mazin talks about it. I don't think it's a good title. I don't know what it's trying to say. Did you look into this? You know what?
Give me the recap.
Episode 4. We pick up with Ellie and Joel on the road to Wyoming, hoping to find Joel's brother Tommy, a link to the Fireflies, so that Ellie can be out of Joel's hands. Until then, they make the best of their situation with pun books, Chef Boyardee, and the occasional science lesson with Joel, who is definitely not a scientist. You get that siphoning lesson? Did you learn about siphoning in class? We get some quality time that the Goofy movie could only dream of.
Aww.
But things take a turn when Joel and Ellie get ambushed in Kansas City. During the struggle, Ellie shoots a young man in order to save Joel, and Joel finishes the job to spare Ellie from having to do it herself. However, they've kicked the hornet's nest that was once Kansas City Rebellion, led by Kathleen, who has gone way beyond wanting to speak to the manager. Kathleen is searching for Henry and Sam, and while we don't exactly know why, one could guess that it's not to bake them cookies. While hiding out, Joel... I can't read my handwriting, by the way. While hiding out, Joel teaches Ellie the perfect cast. I mean, how to shoot a gun.
Just shut up.
Which is one of the 2 gifts he gives her this episode. The second one being a smile at one of her jokes as they hide out for the night. Unfortunately, they are not alone, and it seems that some other kids have learned how to hold a gun.
Damn.
Here's my question for you. Joel, as we know, is a tough old man. He's 56, we find out.
Uh-huh.
Well, we knew. We knew he was 56. You found out. You didn't think about it. You didn't do the math before.
I just didn't think about it.
He's 56. He's a tough old man. Did you think that Joel would give her the gift of shooting a gun before he ever gave her the gift of smiling? What do you think?
I played the game, so yes.
What do you think about the fact that before he would even give her a smile, he gave her a gun?
Well,
what do you think, Shannon?
Well, and here we go.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about communicating in ways that make you feel comfortable. So him giving her the gun is, in a weird way, a soft moment for him.
Mm-hmm.
I do like that he smiles at one of her jokes before he lets her.
But he doesn't show her, so he doesn't give it to her. He doesn't give her that satisfaction, right?
So I feel that the little smile is almost a precursor to, we see him de-thawing through this entire episode. Mm-hmm. And the gun is something that I think is super indicative of Ellie's personality and the world that they are in that you would like gift a child a gun, even though it's not actually what we're doing. But she's proven herself to be a loyal ally. You also know that, you know, her trigger discipline, she talks about learning about it in Fedra school. Like, I don't know. It just makes sense to me that this makes sense to him as the first step of like give and take.
To me, it's just we learn a lot about Joel this episode, I think, than might be like on the surface, right? Mm-hmm. Joel, it's not a gift per se, but it is the first thing he allows her to have, right? She's been asking for a gun. Episode, like, yes, it's Frank's gun. She took it herself, but he does take it away from her. Mm-hmm. And then he gives it back, and he gives her the gift of saying, you can have this. I'm going to teach you how to hold it properly so that you don't shoot yourself in the ass. Joel is not a good guy. We learn, you know, I love how like Joel is in just straight up dad mode the first like 15 minutes, you know, and we get the Joel that we wish we had, you know, the one that we want. We love from the game. We love from like his interactions with Ellie, you know, things like that. We know he can be. Joel's in just straight up dad mode, but then he has to kill this boy early on in the episode. And it's something there's no mercy. There's no talking about it. He feels like it's a thing that he has to do. And like, we kind of accept the world as it is in terms of the rules of this show and the post-apocalypticness, but we, I guess, forget the fact that like a choice can be made there for mercy, you know, a choice can be made there to maybe help the boy, but Joel doesn't think about that. He doesn't really flinch at that, you know. No. He just does it, right? And like, he lives in such a dire world. He lives in a world that is just out to get them, is no, like, he, ever since 20 years ago, he has not been the dad guy, you know. He's not the fun-loving Joel that we have. He's mercifulness, whatever, you know, merciless, right? And I think it's very powerful, very, like you said, kind of indicative. It shows a lot of his character, the fact that like the first thing that he would gift this girl that he's traveling with, that, as you would say, as you often like to say, that is like, would become his like kind of surrogate daughter in a way, you know. He never shows her, yeah, he's joked with her, but he's never like shown her like a kind of loving or happy side to him. And even though he does break at the end of the episode, that's not the first. We don't get that until the first gift, I think, is, here's how you hold a gun, because he knows she's going to have to use it. Even though he keeps saying, like, you shouldn't have to do this, you shouldn't have to deal with this, you shouldn't be in, like, this world is not for people of your age, you know? He knows that she can't escape it, and she's going to have to kill.
And there's also something there, like, Ellie didn't leave him. Ellie was hiding behind that wall, and I think there's a part of Joel that's like, she could have stayed there. Technically, a choice could have been made, and, you know, he hasn't really given her much emotional ground to stay connected to him. We know that he's a good protector because he's competent and he's capable. And I would rather be traveling with Joel than not, but you can't tell me there's not a little part of you that when you're with someone and she comes in and saves your life, like, that's what happens in the game too. It's in a different point. She like he's being drowned or something, and she shoots the guy, but you're playing as Joel and then Ellie comes and saves you. And I think that just like endears her more to him because he wears this armor of like, he's the protector. He's the reliable one. He's the dependable one. It's his brother that had like big dreams of saving the whole world and always has to be like rescued in some capacity by Joel. And of course it's Ellie who can save the world and it's Joel that has to get her there. And in this moment, he's like, I wasn't helping anyone and this kid came to my rescue. So I think it's part realizing that they're also a little bit more of a team too than
I don't know if it even is that. I don't know that. I mean, like has she endeared himself to him? Yeah, probably, but like he doesn't even say thank you, really that I recall throughout the entire thing. He does say, I'm sorry because he feels like it was his fault, that he should have been doing that. But he still doesn't really kind of piece them together as a team. I think he's giving it to her as like a means of like, if this were to happen again, you need to know how to take care of yourself and to get your way out of this. Like, because if I screw up, if I fail again, like you shouldn't be left defenseless, and she's already crossed a certain threshold in his mind. Yeah. So he's allowing her again to do this thing. I don't find him, is he opening up to Ellie? Yes. I don't think it's quite the team that he imagines. I don't think he can still feel like he can, it's not like he can trust Ellie, to kind of watch his back or anything. There is a scene, I don't know if we're going to get this. This one's a hard thing to mention because it is spoilers for the game and might happen in the next episode. But in the context of the timeline of the game, it would have already happened in the show if it was going to happen. When he shows her how to use a gun in the game, it's out of desperation. Like he's going to go do something. He hands her a rifle and you're going to stay up here. I need you to like give me cover and shoot at these people. It's like, how to use it. Hold it here, put it the buttstock here, do that. Very quick rundown of how things have to happen. And he doesn't have time to make sure that, and it's kind of out of desperation. And that's the first time they get to work as a team, and I think that hopefully that element still comes. I don't think we've ever really gotten that. He still feels very much like he's screwing up and he's not doing right. He feels beholden kind of to Tess, as we know early on in the episode. He's doing this because like he sees Tess as family and Ellie's just cargo. And he almost not only like screwed up by like losing his life and not paying attention, but like potentially could have lost Ellie because of that and screwed up like his entire promise, And I think he feels bad about that, and at the same time, he doesn't want to leave her in a position where that could happen again. Yeah.
Because Ellie's not just cargo to him. And I don't think
at this point, I
don't think he believes that.
Well,
I don't think he, so just backing up just a little baby bit. Because I have a little bit more meat to get into there as well, but just the fact that so backtracking, even though we're not going from this point in the episode, when they're in the car and he's saying like, you keep going for family, and they have like that conversation and she says, I'm not family. And he says, no, you're cargo. I don't think this is where game Joel and TV show Joel differ for me, because in the game, I believed that for quite a while, Ellie was not, like Joel kept his defenses up a lot longer. I think that makes for less enticing, like, TV show watching, right? You want your characters to thaw and connect, especially because we know this is the story of Ellie and Joel's relationship. So if he stays stonewalled for 4, 5, 6 episodes, it's not as intriguing. But I like that the cracks are already showing in his armor. The fact that he says you're cargo, it's almost like he's reminding himself too. Like that he doesn't want to let his defenses down, and he doesn't like want to get close to this little girl. But I love that when they pull off the road and they go to sleep for the night and they can't light a fire because there's humans out there that might do crazy shit. Like he doesn't sleep. He stands guard over Ellie. And that's, she's not just cargo, I don't think.
I mean, he would do that regardless. He treats her as a child that the entire episode, he keeps treating her as a child that can't take care of herself, right? He says, like, yeah, no one's going to find us here. No one could find us here. And I don't believe he believes that. I believe he's telling her that until she goes to sleep, and then he can keep watch. Like he believes anything could happen, and he's used to getting ambushed, things like that, But
that's because he cares about her emotional reality. So he's being kind to her.
I think caring about a child, I think honestly is just different from caring about Ellie, and being connected to Ellie. Because as soon as I can't spoil anything that comes up, but like I think there is a certain point like in the game where like even he's still trying to pass off Ellie, and we've not even reached that point. I think it is, not to argue, because I think like you can be right here. Like, yeah, he's again growing to Ellie. Like I said, at the very beginning, I love how he is in the beginning. He's in full on dad mode, right? He's drinking coffee. He's, they're doing a little road trip. He's listening to Hank Williams. He's joking around in a way, like you can go wait in the car, kind of thing. He's answering questions. He's allowing her to ask. He's not kind of fending them off, and he allows her to kind of convince him to tell a little bit of his story about what went on with Tommy and Tess. Is he opening up? Yes. Is he like getting it? But as the way that you would, I think, with anyone, if and again, being a child, the way that he treats her, believes that, you're too young to be doing this. You're too young to have all this much pressure on the world to have to go through. Like, you should be in school, you should be, doing these shit. Like he doesn't want to necessarily be here with her, but he is here, and he made a promise, and he might as well deal with it, but he never is ever completely honest with her. He's always, he says like, we're going to be okay, but he doesn't believe that.
Yeah.
He says we're, he lets on like why he's doing things, but he doesn't ever kind of give in to, like I said, he doesn't ever say thank you for doing, he doesn't want that, like that connection there. He'll say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
He'll own up to his own stuff. But I think there's just like a little bit, there's so much more hesitation. There's so much more that he's not able to see Ellie as anything but a child. I think that's important because he eventually gets there. That's not quite a spoiler. It is a spoiler because yeah, sure, he will eventually get there. Won't say how or whatever, but I think it's still taking its time. It's still taking a while. Yeah, she's cargo. I don't think he believes that. I think there is a certain point subtext can be there, but we got to take people for their word sometimes. What they say is like what they say, Right, but
in the same way, like that Joel says, yeah, we're going to be safe. Like you can say things and not mean them fully. And I just like the idea.
But that's the difference between lying to someone and then lying to yourself. I don't always. I think this is just what he believes. He believes, like you said, that's at a moment where he's believing like I'm the only one that can protect Tommy. Like I have to get him out of trouble all the time. Like I'm persistent, and also like you're cargo. Like you're not family.
Yeah.
He knows who family is to him. He's talking about his family. I don't think he would lie. Where you think he's convincing himself not or whatever, I think he wants that to be true.
That she's just cargo?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
He wants it to be true that he is cargo. And I think he has convinced himself that like this is going to be a job. I'm not going to fight it anymore. I'm going to do the job. But I'm still going to do it. And I think to me, the reason that's true is because it's only after the gun that he starts to see Ellie. You know, it's only after the shooting that he starts. Before that, you know what I'm saying? Because then again, we get the moment where he breaks. He's been putting up this wall of like, this is, don't get attached. Okay, we talk about it the prior episodes. He doesn't want to get attached to her. You know, he doesn't want to like live it. He doesn't want to show her like any sort of weakness. You know, he had a trouble saying he was sorry before. He was like, I'm not good at this. I'm not good at like, as you would say, being vulnerable. You know, I'm not good at saying I'm sorry. This is my fault. You know?
And like jumping off of that, I agree, because earlier in the episode, he does let Ellie affect him with her stupid joke. It does impact him. It gets through that wall. He just doesn't show her. So she's already infiltrating and he's still fighting against it. Which is the reason why I think when he says your cargo, he's just drawing that line for him, for her, for clarity. So everybody knows your cargo. But underneath that, there is something I think that is already connecting them. Even if he doesn't want to admit it, look at it, or want it to be true, I really do think there's something in him that is drawn to like being a dad, essentially, like in that parental figure for this girl.
Well, you can't help it. Like you've mentioned it, like he can't help being like who he is, right? We've all been in those like kind of situations where like I want to be mad, you know, but you can't help but like laughing or smiling, you know, like I know what that feeling is, you know, and it's frustrating. Part of me also thinks that was just Pedro Pascal like breaking.
And they were like, keep it, it's perfect for the character.
Yeah, how many times did they do jokes, you know, that they kept throwing different ones at him. And like that one like just actually got him. Like who knows? Like it was kind of what had to happen, but also like as it went on, I was like, oh, he's kind of breaking. It's kind of funny, you know? But like even then we're still getting that moment with Joel. Like he does break, the wall breaks, you know, and it is interesting. I think it can still be true that he believes that she's just cargo, especially like at the beginning, you know. I think it's very important that he like has that journey, you know, that he still can't see her beyond, you know, and it's hard to, because the last time he had to deal with a girl of this age was his daughter. Right. And she didn't get to this point. She didn't have to deal with, you know, my favorite dad thing that happens at the very beginning is the fact that like he can't talk about sex. You know, I mean, this is from the video game as well, almost beat for beat.
Word for word.
And almost shot for shot too, is the fact that he's like, no, I can't, that the pages are sticky because, you know, like, like he can't even say, and she's like, I'm fucking with you. And it's funny, like, of course, that's one of the most dad things in this, like not being able to approach a subject or like be honest and not being able to know what she can handle or treat her as an adult that can like talk about these things. And the fact that like Sarah never got here. Maybe he never had to have this conversation with Sarah, you know, about sex or anything like that, or in that nature, right? Yeah. And so this is also brand new territory for him, you know. So that's also an interesting element, of the whole, especially the beginning, you know, dad mode and whatever, enjoying his coffee as a dad would, loudly, you know, but also like kind of teaching her about these things, you know.
I have an interesting note about just, I think, unfortunately, I'm going to constantly be drawing comparisons between Ellie and Sarah.
I think that was, we talked about it. I think that's the point, right? Yeah.
And we've already mentioned in a previous episode the difference between the way that like Ellie seeks reassurance and the way that Sarah would seek reassurance. And I just have notes in here about like Ellie says, there's no way anyone knows we're here. No one's going to find us. Like she seeks reassurance by speaking in definitives. And I almost feel that you brought up in the first episode, Sarah, in a way, parenting Joel. Yeah. In the way that she's able to take care of the things he needs because his attention is elsewhere. And Ellie steps into that, like a similar position in a different way. she's the one that checks with him to make sure that he's all right. She's the one that as soon as he comes in, she's like, I'm fine. Everything's okay. We know that Ellie doesn't want to be a burden. And I just feel like she's already so capable and so in tune with him. And that as he learns that about her, like they're just going to fall a little more into sync. But yeah, I just like Ellie's never like, are we going to be okay? Like, am I going to get jumped in here? She's always like, we're going to be fine because you can handle it. Or like, you know.
Sure. I mean, but again, like he lies to her, you know, it's the being okay, we're going to be fine, you know, is kind of is as a parent would, like protecting, like, you know, like,
which is so nice.
He doesn't see her, he doesn't see her as anyone that can handle that.
Seeking reassurance and then offering that comfort, I think is important because the Joel we met in the first episode wasn't really doing that for Ellie.
Right. And I think that, again, we go back to, talking about whether or not they're a team, things like that. I think it's as a team effort, like she would share in a lot more duties, like keeping watch, doing things like that.
Oh yeah, no,
that doesn't
not
happen
a
here.
Full
you know,
scale like
he doesn't
team.
He treats her as someone that can't handle these things,
or
like the realities of the world that he even says that almost outright. What does he say? Like, you don't know the world we live in, or something like that.
Like you haven't seen the world.
She's like, why are you doing this? Why do you bother going on?
Mm-hmm.
You know. If you don't have any hope with it.
Yeah.
And he, like, you know, you haven't seen the world kind of thing. He doesn't think she can handle anything.
Right.
You know?
Because she hasn't been given the opportunity to, like you said, prove herself yet.
Right.
So with the gun and then, you know, she starts like little nods to the game, like moving shit out of doors so Joel can get in and being lifted up into small windows and handling herself in these smaller places. I feel like he's realizing piece by piece that, you know, if you give her the room to be competent, she's going to be competent.
I think she's also proven that Ellie being Ellie sometimes, like, she isn't capable of, she doesn't know the world, right?
Right.
Like, she's doing these pun jokes. He lives in a world where, like, everything's so dire, you know, like, you got to be on constant watch, like, everything's survival mode, you know, like, bare minimum, what do we need kind of thing, right? She's telling jokes. She's constantly trying to ask questions and learn about, figure out the story, you know, like that. And then the moment that he teaches her how to hold the gun, like, she laughs. And to me, that's like, oh, that's a dangerous laugh, because this is a serious moment, you know? He's like, no, he doesn't say this, but I imagine, like, if I were teaching my child, like, how to hold a gun, and he's like, you know, tries to pull it from her, see how this is, and she's giggling like she's playing, and it's not a playing moment, you know, like he's no, this is serious. This is a thing that can hurt someone. Yeah, this hurts people.
Which, like, Ellie's not a stranger to. She knows that.
I understand that, but I'm saying is, like, that is a showing of, she hasn't yet gotten to the point where, like, she is slowly learning about the world, and, like, he's kind of right. She's not handling it in the way that she's not handling it in the way that he handles it, obviously. Like, yeah, you can't go around the world always being, like, super serious all the time, life or death kind of thing. You know, you got to joke around or whatever. But that, to me, that little bit laugh, even though, like, it's an interesting moment. Like, yeah, if you were teaching someone, a kid with, like, a different type of toy, like, it might be a different context. Like, yeah, they're enjoying the connection. You know, they're enjoying, like, you teaching them something. You know, I think she loves that he's giving her that attention. But it's a dangerous laugh, because she's not understanding, like, the thing that's in her hands is so dangerous and so much more impactful, you know? And it's not just about the fact that, look, you're holding it, right? I can't take it from you. It's also the fact that, like, this thing can take someone's life, and that's serious. Yeah. And, like, if you're gonna and you're just laughing about it, that's a dangerous spot to be in. That's still a childlike view of looking at things. I would feel worried, you know? I feel like Joel probably was a little bit.
Interesting.
You know, I don't know. There was a look on his face that like, to me was like, ooh, like maybe it's just me, I
think you're projecting.
how I reacted to that moment. I was like, oh no. But like, it is, again, Ellie is, I don't think it's a wrong impression considering the fact that Ellie does go back and forth from being like an adult who, yes, I've killed someone before, to being a child who's laughing about holding a gun. Like she loves having it. She smiles just like looking at it. Again, it's a gift from Joel. Like he's giving me this, you know, it's so childlike in how she does that, you know?
And I think that was intentional because you have these moments with Ellie where she is like vicious. She'll just whip out a knife and like stab a bitch. She'll come out, she'll shoot a kid in the back. Like, and then you have to remember that she is like a 14-year-old child.
Yeah, but she was just crying about that.
Right.
You know?
So there are moments where you have to remember, there are moments in which Ellie shows, I think, a hardened quality beyond her years because of the time that she was born and the things that she's seen and what she's had to grow up with. But then we get these moments where, yeah, she's giggling over the gun she just held to shoot a kid in the back while he was crying for his mom.
I think that's important to understand, though.
Like, that's
wild. The weight of that is
that she can turn it on and off. That it can be like a tool for like destruction, and then is also like a gift from a father figure. And as a child, being able to swing back and forth between those two things, like you're saying, is dangerous, not because she's a kid, but because of the situations that they find themselves in.
Sure. I mean, yeah. So what, I don't know what you're trying to actually say there, though, about that.
That I'm agreeing with you that I see her giggling over the gun as a childlike quality, but I don't think it means that she doesn't understand the weight of what she's holding. Right. Because she does understand.
Yeah, she understands like what it does, but I think it is very, I mean, in the same way, like, you know, I don't know, you do some like training, stunt training, things like that. You've done weapons and stuff like that. You want to be able, like, you want someone to take that seriously, right? I have a very big pet peeve with, even with stunt weapons, you know, of when people are holding things that are supposed to be weapons, sharp objects. I hate people that talk with knives. Right. You know, I think it's like you are not treating anything with like kind of respect, and you got to treat those things with a certain amount of respect. And there is merit to having like a childlike quality. And I think the danger there is the fact that you want her to have that childlike quality, but and she's having it with a gun, and that's not a good place. Like that's the world again that Joel lives in, and it sucks, you know? Yeah. like you don't want her to have to like cross that threshold, and she's probably going to have to. Wait,
before we go on. So I have a fun bridge fact from the travel montage. We see a shot of what I think is the Fort Pitt Bridge in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is exciting because we know that a lot of this is what took place in Pittsburgh.
Right. Unfortunately, we were super excited, Shannon, for you to get to go to fake Pittsburgh. Instead, we get fake Kansas City.
And that's fine. I get it. I'm not mad about it. I did want to see some Pittsburgh, but I think I saw it represented in...
I think she just wanted her donkeys.
Stop it. What?
Isn't Dunkin' Donuts? She worked at Dunkin' Donuts.
I did work at Dunkin' Donuts for like 4 years. Anyway.
Yeah.
I believe the Fort Pitt Bridge in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania is the first bridge that they drive over. Yeah. And then the second bridge that they drive over is the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Bridge in Wheeling, West Virginia, crossing into Ohio. So those are the two bridges that we see. Well, fun fact, Pittsburgh is called the City of Bridges because it has 446 bridges. That's a ton of bridges for one city. It's the city that has the most bridges, period, in the world. 446 bridges, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Look it up.
Interesting that we set this in Kansas City. I know they mentioned that this would, in the podcast, like there was a reason why. I think it's mostly because of their shooting location. They felt like Kansas City got them closer to their destination to Wyoming, but also like had some elements within like Vancouver or wherever they were shooting that they can utilize for Kansas City. I think also the fact that Kansas City is technically in two different states in Kansas and Missouri. There's two sides of
it
straddles like a line is interesting. And the fact that like we are dealing with a city that is infighting, you know, the QZ no longer exists. Fedra is apparently non-existent, though there was a Fedra here. And Kathleen, played by Melanie Lynskey, has led, I don't know if she led, but there is a rebellion that she is leading now that I think took over Kansas City.
Yes.
They're under a new regime.
I have a note for that, too.
Very interesting. I think that her brother might have been the de facto leader of this rebellion. And she kind of took over. It's a new character, so this doesn't exist in the games. Before, this was Pittsburgh, and it was just bandits and stuff, and it was like a rebellion. It was clearly like these people took over, Fedra is no longer here, and they took all their stuff. And it's a new occupation, right? They mentioned this in the podcast. When a new regime takes over, it feels very much like the old one, right? And that's what they're dealing with right now. They're dealing with a lot of infighting. To me, my backstory right now, maybe we'll learn about this in the next episode, I'm assuming that she wasn't the original leader. Her brother might have been, but she was close enough and did enough. She's smart enough to have led. And when her brother got taken from her for one reason or another, the betrayal of Henry, whatever you want to call it, she has taken over.
Yeah.
You know?
So in an interview, Melanie said that when Craig Mazin asked her to play this character, that she was going to be this like mob boss, basically. And she was really like not thrilled about it. And he was like, no, wait, hold up. I'm going to tell you. And this is a direct quote from that interview.
This is Craig Mazin speaking?
This is Craig Mazin speaking to Melanie Lynskey.
Sure.
Imagine that your brother is basically Jesus. Imagine growing up as a sibling of Jesus and being like, my brother is the greatest human being. He's leading the world. He's the kindest, most decent person. I don't think I'm that great, but I don't need to be great because I have this person by my side. And then somebody brutally kills him. And how is that fair? Who are you after that? You're forced to step into a role that you never asked for and you don't think you're very good at. And then Melanie Lynskey says, the thing I found very interesting is that when that character does step into the position, she doesn't have guilt about doing bad things. Whereas her brother, she saw as a very good person who did what he had to do to survive. And Melanie finds that her character is a lot more of a cold, calculating hard ass than even expected.
I want to see that episode because that sounds amazing. And I mean, the fact that I didn't know any of that. And I kind of pieced together clues from the subtext, from what was happening, from watching it twice. And it's very similar. I believe I get it now, you know. But also, like, I did have some these things like it made sense to me, you know. And I was like, okay, so that is true.
Yes,
like her brother was the guy.
You picked up all the pieces perfectly.
Oh, so that's really interesting. And she plays it so well.
So interesting.
Because there is kind of this hesitation. Like you said, she doesn't know what she's doing, but she is embracing it in a way. You know, when they bring the people there that are wounded and she's like, is he going to survive? Does he need a doctor? You know, because I think she's genuinely asking, you know, and then they're like, it's not going to matter. And she goes and she does the ruthless thing, you know, but she's still leaning on the people that she trusts to kind of guide her into a certain direction, right? She's making a decision, which I think is what a leader does. Makes decisions, right? Tells people what they need to do. Y'all do it, right? But she's leaning on people, especially Perry, which is my new favorite character. I don't know why. Just love Perry, played by, I believe, Jeffrey Pierce, his name, who played the original Tommy.
Pew, pew, pew.
And you don't have to do an air horn every time that we bring up a person.
An air horn for emphasis. What the
fuck? I'm just, just obligation. I love Perry. Do you not? You say that because you're just like, oh, okay, you know.
No,
because here's the thing. I think Perry is now taking that role, right? Whereas of the brother, in a sense, because you mentioned or Melanie mentioned that the brother was the guy who had to do what he had to survive, but he was he was good at making these moral decisions, but she's not afraid to do like the bad things, right? Also, she's hurting. She's very much hurting, and she wants revenge. The Last of Us, as we go on to know, is going to be a story about revenge and the cycles of revenge. And they're living a whole story of that in Kansas City right now. And Perry is kind of like now become that kind of like conscience, to her, where he's like, are you sure we don't want to tell anyone what's going on? Are you sure that we want to, like, what is it? He's kind of not pushing back, but I feel a sense from Perry that he's not exactly sure where she's going. Like, he trusts her. She was smart. She knows what she's doing. She's not someone that you would immediately tag as like the leader of an entire militia, but she's there. And I think we're seeing Perry see a different Kathleen than what she was before. But we don't know what she was before, so we're not going to. But there's always something about like the way that Perry observes her and like what she's going to do next that keeps like causing him fear. He's like, I'm here, I'm loyal. That's the kind of sense that I get from him, because always doesn't feel. He feels like a little hesitant about these things. He's always kind of being like, are you sure? And to me, there's that sense that Kathleen was not like this before, and while he trusts her and while he's there for her and he's loyal to her, we're getting a dangerous Kathleen, and she is changing before us. We just don't know it because we haven't seen her before. Yeah.
I didn't read that at all. I see them as a very functional 1-2 unit, kind of a mirror of like what Tess and Joel could be like under different circumstances almost. But just the fact that as soon as he gets sensitive information, you see that crumbling area that we don't know what it is, but the first thing he does is take it to her. And I feel that they are just a strong 1-2 combo that he, for whatever reason, I don't know why, but like believes in her, is good at working with her, that they are like two people that can depend upon each other. And I don't think there's any fear in him or hesitation. I think he's ready. I think he trusts that she's going to do what needs to be done. I'm sort of interested in the crumbling floor.
Okay.
Because he brings it to her, which means he finds it. When do we tell the others? Not yet. So I'm guessing that means that they've seen this before because they know what's under there. I
think they've seen not the specific one, but different ones, Yeah. Now here's the thing, is like, this is kind of new. I have a sneaking memory of infected coming out of the ground in a later thing in like the Last of Us Part 2, the infected are always kind of underground, because they're around.
I know what you mean.
But this is clearly like the fungus is creating, like, we know the fungus stretches for miles and like through the ground and things like that. But now it seems like the fungus is creating like tunnels, and that's new. So we don't we can assume it's fungus. And I mean, we do have a trailer shot early on of a big bloater boy, big guy coming out from the ground, and we do get a teaser later on. Not to spoil that, but it was all kind of in the trailers.
Right.
Like, we can assume that this is infected are under.
Yeah.
What was interesting is when I'm watching it and the ground moves and stuff, like the ground moving, it just feels like maybe it's fungus. It's a sinkhole kind of thing. And like you're hearing like the rumbling of the concrete kind of there. When I was listening to the podcast and they played this clip from there, that crumbling of the concrete sounded like a roaring almost, of a bloater. It's like just hearing it was different. And obviously we know something's going to come out from there. That's fine.
Sure.
So maybe that was that. But like, I found it interesting, like the visual and the listening to it, like the sound, like almost passed me by.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know if anything was under there yet. It's not like they're digging through. It's not like the orcs.
They're not like tunneling.
It's not the rings of power and the orcs are tunneling through to like get, and they're going to come up, kind of thing. This is, I think the fungus is creating the thing,
like decay,
and like
maybe?
It can always be around, I don't know. We're going to learn more about that. It's a whole new thing.
Yeah.
But again, like Terry's hesitation, he wants to tell people. I think there's her fixation on Henry right now, and like who is Henry, like in this point of the show, and like she is fixated on this,
right,
to the point where she's gonna kill the doctor. Like the person that of all the people that could be important in a apocalypse. It's a doctor. It's a guy who knows his stuff. It's the person who delivered you, who's still here, and he knows her. I think even the doctor is kind of confused at Kathleen's intensity and her fixation on like, you gotta know, you're not telling me information. You have talked to these people. You know where Henry is. He doesn't. I mean, we assume. I mean, there's only so much we could take, like, from at his word or whatever. But again, to me, like, if a show's not going to show you something, like, they would have showed us, I think, in a way that that the doctor knew something. If the doctor knew something, I think the doctor doesn't know. I don't think he knows where Henry is. Otherwise, like, I feel like we would have gotten the sense of that. They would have given us some visual clue or something that he does know. I think he really doesn't know. And he's like, what are you after, Kathleen? Like, I'm sorry. Like, you were wronged. Like, I'm here, but like, me. Like, I think he is very confused about who this Kathleen is. And she is so fixated. All she wants to do is get to Henry. They bring her the bodies. Henry did this. Go find Henry. It does. You know what? These people, Henry called them. They came here because of him. Everything leads back to Henry, to her. It has to be. That's like a thorn in her side. It's all about how does she get to Henry? And I think that fixation is scaring Perry a little bit. I don't know them that well. We haven't been there, but and maybe we'll get more of it. I'm just saying, like, there's something telling me that, like, this Kathleen is not the same as, like, something changed when her brother got tortured or beat to death or whatever she said.
Yeah, that would make sense. Probably
something snapped in her. Yeah. And now she has like a fixation. And I think, do they make a great team? Yes. Will he continue to be like a teammate to her? Like, yeah, he's loyal to her. He trusts her in a way that he's obvious. Like, he doesn't argue. Like, you're not wrong. They're a great team.
Yeah.
He's going to be her hammer, whatever she needs to be, But I don't think that translates to him having questions about who she is now,
we also have to think, like, how long do you think this has been going on?
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't think
brand
this
new.
is...
Yeah.
This is brand new?
I think this is fairly new, right? The one, Joel didn't expect the QZ to be there. Henry being on the run or whatever. It feels brand new. I think even in the game, again, to go back, like, they're still picking up people. We know there was a resistance. Like, we keep finding letters that showcase, like, that these are people fighting back against Fedra, things like that. This is, and then in the podcast, they mentioned, like, how this is an overturning of the government. Not to go in again to that later on episode, the preview where she's talking to, like, prisoners, and she's kind of saying, like, this is a new thing, where, this is, I think this is a rebellion that just overthrew Fedra. in a sense, they're doing exactly what the Fireflies are failing to do, which is very interesting, which is what I love about The Last of Us, is because we always get these factions, these new factions that are like showing different sides of the world. And it's not just these two things that are battling. Like you would think when you start off, it's the Fireflies versus Fedra and this thing like that. It's like, no, this is an expanding world. And this is not the Fireflies. This is a different thing. And they're having their own battle. And so you never know who you're going to run into in the game or in the show. And there's a whole other world of people, you know, if in essence, this is like a whole other, not to be nerdy, a whole other Star Wars, right? You know, whereas like the Star Wars is like, it's always the rebellion against the Empire, right? Well, like this is a different rebellion against against the Empire, you know? And they're handling things much different than the Fireflies are, and they're succeeding, you know, which one makes them very dangerous because we don't know what their intentions are, you know, whereas the Fireflies are trying to establish a new kind of government in a way. But everyone has their own things that they think are right. Everyone has their moral compass in a way and what they believe how the world should be run. I think Craig Mazin goes on to talk a little bit about this in the podcast about like how this works and what they're kind of tackling here, you know? And I think that's, to me, that's like super interesting. We're going to see more and more factions too. And like, now we're just giving a voice to this one, you know? There is no end game at this point. It's just right now it's like they overthrew the government, but they're not trying to do a new thing. They're not establishing new rules. I think we'll get there. Right now, she's fixated on Henry, though. You know, and I think that's like more important to her, is because she needs to like cut off some loose ends or something. I don't know. It's very interesting to me. I'm loving it. I'm loving this addition to it because, again, in the game, they were just obstacles. You know, it's more bad guys to shoot. You know?
Yeah. It was like a deviation from the regular gameplay.
Yeah.
Like the story of the main storyline into like, okay, let's do some shooting. Let's shoot some stuff.
Yeah. I did think that, I mean, when Frank's gun showed up and she took it, I had a feeling that she was going to use that gun to save Joel. We know that happens in the game. We know that, but and when that happens, it's just a gun that she finds on the ground. It's a gun that Joel is fighting for to save himself, but he fails, and then he starts getting drowned, and then a shot happens, and it's Ellie, you know? I thought we were going to get that at the end of the episode, but they tackled it pretty early on. Did you feel any thoughts about the differences there, or how do you... I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you and answer the question.
Like, do you have thoughts? Here are mine.
My thoughts was that I was surprised we got there so soon. And that it happened so soon, but also that it didn't happen in the way that, you know, it didn't feel like Joel was in danger at first. Like he might have still been able to get out of it in the way that I didn't catch until the second time. I was like, okay, yeah, I guess he was dying. You know, he was really, really struggling there. But the first time I was like, what? He wasn't struggling as much as in the game, you know? I'm surprised he did it. But then the difference here is that she doesn't just shoot him and the guy's dead. She shoots him and he doesn't die. And it's a kid. And he's bleeding for his life. You know? Such a, actor with 5 lines or less, found he's probably a day player. Great job, though. You know, love that he got to do this because it's a great performance. No notes. That the difference there of not extending Joel's needing to be saved, but extending the aftermath was jarring for me at first, but also very satisfying in what we're getting there. Not satisfying in the fact that this guy's suffering and like clearly like pleading for his life, but the fact that like, again, we humanize this. I love that they really wanted to show the weight of what just happened, you know, and what goes, because it's always, to me, fascinating how we can turn on a dime of like going from I'm killing this person to oh no, like I was in a dangerous situation. Now my life is on the line and I'm going to die. And like any moment here is going to be like my last breath, you know, for a person to change on a dime, their emotions to like go, like, where does a person go when their life is like in danger, you know, when like in front of you is something that can like end you in a moment. You
Are
know?
You talking about the kid?
Yeah. And that is always a fascinating thing and a thing that we don't often get in our media, you know? And maybe it's kind of on the nose, I guess, thematically or you know, in terms of things. But I think it's such a powerful moment because these moments we don't get often in pop culture. And I think it's important for these kinds of stories, you know? Mm-hmm. Especially in a story where in the game, you're usually killing lots of people without a second thought because you kind of have to, you know, over the course of the game, you've killed hundreds of people, innocent people. Is this guy innocent? I don't know, but whatever. Anyway, you tell your thoughts if you had anything.
Yeah, another place to give Ellie the time to be a kid because again, the first episode, we see her ready to pull out a knife and stab a man with like no consequence. And then Joel steps in and finishes the job. Mm-hmm. And it's like Ellie initially is not afraid of violence, but then is. And I think that I like the difference between the gameplay and the TV show is that we have even more time to humanize both of these characters. Like by me saying with Joel, like, I think he's thawing faster than game Joel is. And, like, Ellie is childish in a way that, like, game Ellie doesn't get to be because you're playing a video game. Like, she deals with the weight of shooting a kid in the back and then listening to Joel, like, end his life. Instead of just carrying the weight of I protected Joel and now that person's dead and I don't have to like really sit in that emotion any longer than I absolutely have to.
Right.
So
it's one thing. It's always one thing to have to do something to, you know, not that I know, but in terms of like what we've been shown in media, you know, it's one thing to kill someone and not have to deal with the consequences or think about like who that person was or whatever. And it's an entirely different thing to have to like do something and then have that person be vying for your like mercy, you know, your heart, your anything, you know. The fact that it wasn't that she not screwed up.
No.
But she didn't finish the job, you know? And then she had to like deal with that. And as a kid, that's got to be hard. I mean, it is hard on her, you know? And she's holding back tears like when she goes back behind that hole and has to deal with and listen to that happen. You know, she's trying to like, she's trying to forget about it almost immediately. She's trying not to humanize this person. She's trying to be like, no, it had to happen, like justifying it on it. He's like, I'm fine. You're fine. Here's my flashlight. I have food. We got everything. She's trying to get back to.
That's why like she's so much like Joel already. Like that's the same shit Joel does. He's just like, he compartmentalizes and moves forward. And I feel like we got to see like Ellie's little break and then how she handles trauma, which is put it in a box, put it away.
Right. Which is
wild.
What, a good thing, bad thing for you? Because you're saying it like, yeah, like
it's just wild. Like it's just that's just the world that she lives in. She's a 14-year-old kid and she has to deal with the trauma of like what does killing someone look like? And what does being around death look like?
Yeah. And do you think when she's okay, so I know that this we know that she's quote unquote killed someone before, right? But again, we don't know the context of what she's talking about, but we did see her kill an infected in the last episode, you know, and how she did that. And she didn't have to deal with it being a human, you know, and this is very, very, again, very different. And to compartmentalize, this is always going to be hard to compartmentalize, you know. I putting up that front for Joel, you know, she's putting up that front because she admires Joel so much. She trusts him. When they first get behind that truck, she is listening, hanging on to like his every word.
She's so activated.
You know?
Yes.
She's learned that when Joel says something to do it, you know. I think a little bit different from Ellie in the game in the sense that like I don't recall her listening all that well in the video game.
I feel like Ellie in the video game had a like severe independent streak.
Yeah.
And Ellie in the TV show is also independent, but yeah, just more willing to engage.
And I think that it's not, I don't think she is like Joel, but she admires Joel so much and she respects Joel so much that she wants, it's the thing that we do, right? Like it's not the toxic masculinity, but in the sense that we all, like most people in the world have grown up like needing to impress their fathers or wanting their fathers to be proud of them. You know, she doesn't want to show him that like she's not. So when she says that like I've killed someone, we don't know exactly what she's talking about. If she's just talking about like that infected from the last episode, that's not the same, Ellie. It really is not the same, you know. And he's trying to say like, well, you shouldn't have to deal with that either way. Like it's not the, you know, what are you talking about? But she keeps on putting on this front like for his sake because she doesn't want to like let him down, you know. Like,
so do you think if that were Tess, do you think she wouldn't have put that front up?
No, I think she still would have, or maybe she would have opened up a little bit more to Tess. Like maybe Tess, because again, the way that he handles it, you know, like there's a little bit of anger, disappointment. I don't know. Whenever like she shoots, he doesn't say thank you. He just takes the gun, and there's like I could feel that like you're not supposed to have this. Like how do you even have this kind of disappointment? You know, he puts it. In fact, he takes his gun out to. Or I guess he has a knife. I don't remember. To like finish the job, he says, "Go back there," and she like just walks off. Like I think he's handling the situation much differently than Tess would have handled it. You know, whereas I think Tess might have taken Ellie away from that situation. I think Tess might have like. And while Joel did whatever he had to do, you know, who knows, you know, and she would have talked about it. I think Tess would have been a lot better at talking about this than Joel clearly is. Do you not think that? Because
yeah. No, I do. I just think, again, I think Ellie and Joel are very much alike. And I think in the same way that Joel puts on like hardened Joel vest to protect himself from the things that he has to do, I think Ellie puts on hardened Ellie, like I carry a knife vest to make sure that she is able to handle the things that have been thrown at her in her life.
Yeah.
And obviously there's like power and dynamic plays there, like father-daughter relationships or looking up to someone who can fill a father figure role in your life, which is not something you've had before. But I just see so many similarities in Joel and Ellie that it's hard not to like draw that parallel when she just like shuts off and is ready to go again.
I mean, anyone who's a parent or someone who's like done bad things or doesn't see themselves as like a good person who has to have a child that they're either mentoring or dealing with or that is their actual son or daughter, I imagine would be. I can see where they'd be like, you don't be like me. Don't become me. We don't want our children to be like us. You know, it's like, and that is the thing that children do want, like often emulate their parents.
Absolutely.
People that they admire, they respect and things like that. And like, I don't think Ellie is like Joel. I see that they clearly deal with things, so they balance each other out in a way. But I think because of the relationship that they take on, she does try and be, she wants to be not like Joel, but she wants his respect and his admiration. So she wants to be what she thinks Joel needs and wants in this team. You know, I think she doesn't, like, not only does she not want to be cargo, I don't know what it is right now about Joel for Ellie, but I feel like she doesn't care about the fireflies. She doesn't care about what she means to the whole world kind of thing. I think she's just wanting to be with Joel. Not like a love or like a family thing. Or she's like, I don't want to be your family, but she is kind of enjoying the fact that like she's not in Boston anymore. She's kind of living her life. I don't know what her dreams or her aspirations were before, but clearly she's doing something that she believes that she can be good at or be at. And Joel is taking her on that. And I think she wants to stay with Joel, you know? And I think part of that is her wanting to have that like respect and that admiration and, you know, and mm-hmm. to be the person that she thinks that he wants, you know. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to show you that I'm not okay because Joel doesn't want me to not be okay. You know, he doesn't, mm-hmm. he needs Tess, right? Like Tess would never be like the, you know, and I think that's what she believes. It's like, if Tess wouldn't do this, like I wouldn't do this, you know, mm-hmm. like, no. Like, because if she shows that weakness, then she's showing Joel that like I'm still a child, and she doesn't want to be seen as a child. You know, mm-hmm. she wants to be seen as like a peer and an equal to mm-hmm. Joel in a sense. You know, mm-hmm. I think it's always like Ellie's journey. You know, and he doesn't want to see her as that. Also, like sees her as just a child mm-hmm. that he has to deal with. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. That's kind of what I'm getting from these things. Yeah. How that journey and back and forth will change mm-hmm. or whatever, you know? Mm-hmm. But yeah. Not a heavy episode in terms of plot or anything, but we mm-hmm. get all these different elements. And again, we get to the moment where he breaks, you know? Mm-hmm. He shows a little bit of laughter and smiling, which I'm sure you loved.
You're so
you
cute.
Couldn't stop getting excited every time you thought you saw a smile on Joel's face.
It was adorable. I love watching Joel smile. When Joel brings up that it wasn't her first time killing someone, because they always start the night sleeping like they're both on their right sides, and every time they go to sleep. And when he like kind of looks back to try to engage her in that conversation, she just moves her body. Like she creates space just by flipping over a little bit. Says like, I don't want to talk about it. And then she throws the ball back at him when she mentions that he can't hear. That he hears better out of the one ear more than the other. And he doesn't want to talk about that. So he rolls all the way over. You know what I mean? Like watching their body language, like when he asks the question, he rolls over and she kind of creates some space. And then she asks the question, he just flips all the way over and like pulls his little blanket up around him. Mm-hmm. It was cool to watch that body language of like, they're trying to warm up to each other, and they're trying to give when the other person asks, mm-hmm. but there are still so many boundaries between the two of them that they're like not ready to discuss. Mm-hmm. And I think I really liked that. So that's why the little break at the end is so special too, because we see the potential there in their relationship. Like mm-hmm. Joel cracking in that moment is just showing you that there's like all of that underneath the fact that they're still not ready to communicate at that intimate level. But like she's wearing them down. Yeah. She's in there.
Yeah. I mean, you know, that's time, right? You know, like we get, I think, a sense of as time passes is always when you have to be with someone, you get to kind of know them just from proximity, you know, mm-hmm. from having to like spend day after day with them, you know. I think this is a moment where Joel's kind of like given into the fact that like he's stuck with her, mm-hmm. you know. He failed at getting rid of her at the state house where Tess died. He failed at getting rid of her at Frank and Bill's, and it's like, I'm here and I've gotten to know her, and unfortunately we're here, and it's like as time goes on, it's gonna keep ingratiating themselves to each other, in a sense. And I think that's kind of what's happening to Joel. Again, he's given up fighting it. He's allowing these questions to be asked at the beginning, and he's again allows himself to like, okay, to laugh. Even if he didn't want to. A great moment. Which is again undercut by the fact that they're not alone.
That giggle was this episode's strawberry for me.
Okay, yeah. We'll find the strawberry in every episode, I guess. Is what
What's
you
this
want.
Week's strawberry?
You notice that he was turned over on his
bad
left side, and the right side would have been up.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if he didn't hear Sam and Henry come in, spoilers if you didn't know that was Sam and Henry, but that is Sam and Henry. Yeah. Henry being the older, Sam being the kid. I didn't notice if his figure was. I didn't notice if his finger was on the trigger or not, but I'm sure he's willing to. I was mostly paying attention to the fact that it's Sam.
Yeah.
And the quietness. What a great shot! I loved it. I loved how everything has been shot so far. Like, it's just been a great episode. We really got to teach Game of Thrones to take a note. They're like for shooting night scenes.
Oh my God.
These are dark scenes. They're only shooting it by moonlight, but they're doing pretty well. I mean, we also have like a dark projector, so we're sometimes having trouble seeing it, but I'm getting enough. There's enough information there. You can see a smile, so like if you can see what's happening, what needs to happen, then great. You're getting the idea. Yeah. And I love that. And I love that shot at the end. And I'm so excited for next week's episode. Do you think, by the way, before we get there's not much we can say about Sam and Henry this episode. Obviously, that's going to come next episode. Mm-hmm. But I noticed that, when they're looking at the laundromat, which is where Joel and Ellie crashed into, that's when Perry takes Kathleen to show her something, and shows her the attic where Sam and Henry were. Mm-hmm. I think Henry and Sam have been following them since the laundromat. Maybe we'll learn more about that. Maybe we won't, or whatever. Mm-hmm. But the fact that like it's in close proximity, like the crash happens, the trucks come, there's gunfighting. I imagine that they were watching that, and now they're like, we have to get out of here because now these people are going to come and figure out what's happening. Mm-hmm. But who are these people? And then they were kind of following because there's no other ways to go, and they follow them to this building, and that's why they're there. I find that interesting that they've been silently kind of watching them, from the edge. Whether or not that's true, just to me, like a fun little tidbit of information. Yeah. And how they got there, like they knew that they were there the whole time, yeah, very interesting. I can't wait to delve into Sam and Henry's story. And also, like, what the heck did Henry do to Kathleen? Like, clearly he betrayed her by giving up the brother, and maybe he was part of the rebellion before or something like that. A different backstory for Henry than before, I think. It just wasn't really there. Right. But how that's going to play out with him and Kathleen, who knows? But now I'm very intrigued. Yeah. Anything more you want to say about this episode before we move on to next week or anything?
Just some little game eggs. I liked the run plow. Run plow was fun. The plow, the like Humvee or whatever with the plow on the front that says run, which is the plow you like have to run from in the game.
Sure.
That was cute. Just like to see
they have
that
they have in one of their trucks to We the People, and that's definitely one of the trucks that you see in the game. I mean, the designs are still there. Like, they're making this. It's the video game come to life.
Truly.
Yeah, I loved it.
I also really liked the shooter commentary, because in the game they try to humanize the fact that you're killing people, and if you found a dead body, that you would respond to the dead body.
The NPCs being NPCs.
So the fact that they come over and they're like, they got Brian.
Yeah.
Those motherfuckers got like, it's just, I was like, oh my God, I'm in the video game. I just shot Brian. Brian. So I liked that. And then I also liked the fact that her finding the porn magazine, we already talked about this, but that was literally word for word. Like they're even in the same orientation of the car. Like I love that was a little, and when she throws it out the window, I remember that happening in the game too. And I was like, oh, I'm in a cutscene from the game.
I'm a big fan of the coffee thing because
just the loud slurp.
I'm such a coffee snob, and the fact that he's drinking this coffee that has it doesn't do anything. I mean, like if you drink coffee like me, you probably know that like after 2 to 4 weeks, like coffee's like lost its potency. He's only doing it out of habit, you know? And we have a percolator.
Like old comforts.
We have a percolator kind of like that for camping and stuff like that. And I've drunk out of that. And it's good coffee, you know, but it's also just straight up, it's the kind of dad coffee that you love, and the fact that he's just drinking this dad coffee, you know, the kind of coffee just to do it just out of habit. It's not keeping him awake or anything. It's just kind of there. Maybe there's a little, I mean, who knows how long coffee beans last, but usually it's not that. It's not 20 years.
Yeah. I like to think that it's just like the comfort of like, oh, maybe I haven't had coffee in a while.
Yeah,
and even if it doesn't caffeinate me, it's like, I remember coffee. I like what drinking coffee feels like.
Did you like, this episode felt very much like a table setting episode. I think you can't have this episode without the next episode. To me, you know, which is kind of a criticism of the show in general, because I'm not a big fan of that, in the sense that I want to move along, you know?
Yeah, I almost wish they would have done the same thing with this episode as they did with the opener, which is just like make it a big episode, but give me all of the information in one. There probably is too much information maybe to do that. But yeah, this episode felt very much like I'm just making sure you have all the other pieces. So when shit goes down in the next episode, you're like caught up to speed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But I think it's one of those things where we came from episode 3, and it is a standalone episode. It's the most standalone episode that we've had, in the sense you don't really need the story before or after for it to enjoy it. And then we go straight into an episode where it's like it doesn't do much without the next episode. You know, like you need this in context, not binging per se, but it's hard to take on its own and to not criticize, but like review on its own, you know, and it's not, you know, like we got a little bit of an arc. We talked a little bit about it, but I don't think we got as much as like I would have wanted, you know. We got a lot of introduction of new characters and not a lot of payoff for these things, you know. I
feel like we're hitting the point in the season where like shit's just gonna start to tumble, and I have a feeling that episode 5 is going to be like where that momentum really just starts and then drives, because we've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, so that's 5 more episodes left. Because if you play the game, you know like what's ahead of you, and I can just see this all kind of like just almost all forward momentum from here. Yeah. Because now we're set up. We know what our end goal is. We're in this location where we have this like secondary faction that we've got to get around. But we remember that the Fireflies are our primary focus. And I have a feeling that these next episodes are just going to roll.
Right. Through. So let's talk a little bit about the next episode if we want to. Spoilers alert for anyone who hasn't played the game or doesn't know anything about what's happening or whatever. Skip. You're going to go to a time code. I'll have it in the description below if you want to get our Ellie fuck counter and all those kinds of things. But we're going to go into spoilers for everything beyond this episode, things like that. Next week, to me, is very much going to be Sam and Henry's episode. And that is, I think, one of the more tragic stories we get in The Last of Us, a video game. If it wasn't for the fact that they fleshed out Bill and Frank, because the Bill that we had in the game was not as fleshed out and was not as like important to everything. But this is we get. Unfortunately, it's not going to be a fun story because we're only going to have one episode, I think, with Sam and Henry, and it's going to end with Sam getting bitten and Henry shooting himself, which is tragic. I'm curious how Kathleen's going to play into this, like if that's going to become a part of this whole thing. I mean, when they go through this, we learn again. We get like a little bit of Ellie being able to be a kid with Sam, you know, and again, I think we're gonna get those themes kind of playing up, where like Joel feels like, okay, like maybe these people, like we understand them, they have to deal with this world too, you know. Maybe he could travel with them, and they can help Ellie as well, you know, and he doesn't have to be like the sole protector, but like these things don't last and the relationships don't ever last, and it's like so heartbreaking that they can't have good things, you know. And the first people they run into that feel like there's another child in this universe, you know, and something that Ellie can interact with. I love the little NPC moment or side questy moment where it's not part of the story. There's no cut scene, but they're just like playing darts with each other, like in the house while you're like looking for things, you know, in drawers and stuff, trying to get those survival things, supplies, items. And yeah, like this is the thing that I think I was looking forward to most out of the entire thing. It's like this and like the ending of the game, you know, that's just really powerful, and like the moments with. I mean, I really can't wait to see what happens with David and that, you know, because I think that is like the crux of like Ellie changing over from being a child to I live in this world and it's never going to be the same kind of thing, you know. But this was something that, like I said last week, I can't wait to see how they flesh it out, you know, because having an hour-long-ish episode of Sam and Henry and dealing with this thing and meeting new people and then having to see them have to, oh my God, it's such a trigger warning for suicide. But like, yeah, like it's such a heartbreaking moment, you know, for Henry. Like you think you see like where their story could go and like who they could be and like how they've kept each other alive for so long, and they just end it, you know. It's so heartbreaking. I don't know. You just keep nodding and looking at me, and I don't know what.
Yeah, I don't want to step on you while you're talking. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to Riley, because the joke, like we are setting up meeting Riley, I think, in a future episode, because Riley is the one that gives Ellie the joke book.
Right. Well, they find it together.
Yeah.
But I think again that's going to happen after Joel gets hurt. You know, in the same way that the DLC had came out. Like, we're not getting that next episode.
No, I know, but we're not getting David next episode either.
Yeah.
But so I'm looking forward to like meeting TV show Riley and like exploring that story through the show. Because I think that's a really sad, intense, like pivotal moment for Ellie as well.
Right.
And I'm looking forward to seeing Bella Ramsey like play with that.
Are you excited to meet a bloater?
Fuck yeah.
Next week?
Yeah. Hell yeah. They look nasty as shit. I'm excited.
Now, by this time, we would have already met a bloater, because usually the first time you meet a bloater, the bloater is like your first boss fight in the game. And that's like in the gym of a high school when they're going after the car battery with Bill. It's a whole thing. And we would have already met a bloater. I'm interested to see how they handle the bloaters now, because they're clearly different from the game, because again, they allude to the fact that, oh, so there's no big infected that throw spores at you or whatever, or explode in your face. And that was a game mechanic when spores were a mechanic, but now there's no spores, but the bloaters still exist. but they're just not going to be throwing spores at you. So what is their thing besides being big and
I mean,
scary?
maybe they still throw spores. We don't know.
They're going to... It doesn't, honestly, after watching Physical 100, it doesn't matter. If something that big is coming after me, I'm running. It doesn't.
Everybody wants Physical 100.
It doesn't matter. That thing is, it can throw something. It can not throw something. It can just be, a ground tunneling infected. I'm still not going to be around if it shows up.
Oh, no.
I'm going to run as fast as I can.
Right.
So,
It makes sense.
Bring out the shotguns and the flamethrowers because that is we're not that's a scary thing. I think a bloater is gonna get Kathleen, to be honest. I think that's gonna be the
See, I just can't I don't know. How long is Kathleen gonna be around? That's what I was trying to think. I love Millie Alinsky. How long do you think she's going to play into this story?
Here's the thing. Is
this just a chapter?
I think it's just next episode.
Okay,
yeah. And I think that also they keep teasing the bloater, but they don't tease the truck, which is basically like a tank. And he does say in this episode, you're going to see a tank. But little does he know that tank is coming.
What tank is that, Mattias?
It's the truck that I'm telling you. It's got like a 50 cal or Gatling gun on the back of it, and it's like armored. It's basically an armored vehicle. It's not exactly a tank, but it's tank-like. But it's this armored vehicle, has a Gatling gun, and you have to fight this in the game, and you have to keep running from it, and it keeps
and it's intense,
bearing down on you.
It's intense. It's always there.
I
did a lot of actual screaming in the house,
and I think next week's going to be a very action-packed episode. If anyone is kind of getting tired of the love stories and the and the
interpersonal relationships, let's fight some shit.
We're telling puns or whatever, then they're gonna get some action next episode. Cool. I don't know who I'm mocking there because I don't know that anyone said that, but
if there is anyone saying that,
out there, there's people saying a lot of things about last week's episode, but we don't have to go into that. I don't even know. But yeah, are we ready for the fuck counter?
Give it to me.
What do you? How do you think we did? How do you think we did this week?
I had 4.
I got 5.
God damn it.
Yeah.
Why do you always have one more than me?
Because you're not listening, Shannon, and that's why I do the fuck counter and you don't.
I literally started doing the fuck counter because the first episode I was like, "You're missing fucks." I would have to go back and be like, "She said fuck," and now ever since I corrected him properly one time, I am always down a fuck. Don't chuckle. I'm always down a fuck.
This week, viewers and listeners, we got 5 fucks from Ellie. Pretty good. We're getting back up. We're inching back up. I'm assuming again when we are all action, she's gonna be fuck, right all over the place. We still haven't hit that 13. I'm surprised. I thought we were gonna keep getting some, but it just keeps going like lower and then back mid, a good amount of fucks, don't get me wrong, but
yeah,
not as much as I would have.
Not as strong of a showing as I would prefer.
But yeah, only five this week. We'll see if we can do better next week when there's a whole bunch of action. Yeah, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to sign us off, Shannon?
Thanks for joining us for Codependent Content through our 2 blackouts. My name is Shannon. I'm here with Mattias, and we'll see you guys next Friday.
Right. Don't forget to email us at codependentcontent@gmail.com.
Yeah, just listen to the entire beginning of the podcast.
Discord. Remember, some people don't ever. It's just a reminder. You email us, find the descriptions in the show notes, things like that. You can. Okay, fine. Just go read it, I guess.
Go read it in the show notes.
We won't remind you. Give us a like, subscribe, share with the people, comment on TikTok. Tell us where you find us. Oh, there is always also, I forgot to mention, you can watch this on Spotify or watch it on YouTube if you prefer watching it than listening to it. And also, Spotify allows us to do questions and a poll. So I guess go answer the poll sometimes. I don't know. Sometimes I like to put one up. What should the poll this week be, Shannon?
Ooh, what were we arguing? What were we passionately discussing earlier?
Whether or not Joel is lying about whether she's cargo.
Ellie cargo? Does Joel believe Ellie's cargo? Yes or no? That's gonna be the poll That's going to be the poll. Y'all motherfuckers better vote in that poll. Respectfully vote in the poll. Let me know what you think.
Great. Thank you for joining us. This has been Codependent Content. And good night.
Pew, pew, pew.